unique in the country, and many of the universities have followed our lead in the area of having internships. Most of the universities have theses that are required for master's degrees, but this is a unique program and has been one of the most prominent reasons why people have come to the Academy. I want to make one announcement regarding this Friday night. The Mobile Revelers soccer team plays their first soccer game. It's going to be at Fairhope Stadium. Now, Fairhope Stadium is straight down 98, and after the 98 goes from a 4-lane to a 2-lane, there'll be a recreational park on the right side in a clearing, and you'll see the stadium in the background. There'll be you'll also see tennis courts in the foreground, but the stadium will be in the back, and it's an excellent field for soccer. So everybody, come on out, support the team. Is there anybody else that may have some announcements that they'd like to make? Okay, then I'll turn the podium over to Dr. Applin, Dean of Academic Affairs.
Thank you, Brian. I'd like to make an announcement before we get started here. We do have a guest that will be visiting and attending some of the classes. I believe he was in the class this morning, and I would like to take this opportunity to introduce him. Dr. Tetsuo Meshizaka. Okay, and I knew I would mess up the pronunciation of his name. He is a PhD from the University of Iowa, has his master's degree from Columbia University. He was, up until very recently, the dean of the Graduate College at Chuko Women's University, correct? Previous to that, he was the professor emeritus, or he currently is professor emeritus at Tokyo Metropolitan University. He is an ICSSPE honorary member. He's an alumnus member of the Science Council of Japan, and he is a lifetime member of the AAHPERD, from which conference or convention he just returned coming here. So we're very pleased to have him here and to be visiting with us. He will be coming into classrooms. Laboratories will be in Brian's laboratory this afternoon, and he'll be coming to classes on a regular basis. And for the next 2 weeks, I believe. So we'll look forward to hosting you during that time. Second, I want to introduce Miss Jeannie Kiss. Jeannie, if you can stand up for a second. Jeannie, as far as the mentorship, internship, practicums are concerned, Jeannie is the individual that you will probably have the most interaction with. So I want to make sure that you know who she is so that you can put a face and a position together here as we move forward to review this program. The reason that we take time from the convocations to actually go over mentorship, internship, practicum is quite simple. Although the mentorship, internship, practicum is very integral part of the Academy's programs, at the same time, it is something that could easily have problems, abuses, and other things that can occur. I'll talk about some of the stories as I go through this, but it's very important that you get off on the right foot in this particular program. And so what I'm going to do is take the time to discuss the philosophy behind it, what it is we try to do. I'm going to go through the booklet that you should all have copies of, and then I'm going to entertain questions at the end, and I'm going to ask Jeannie to make some comments as we go along as well. At the present time, we have 115 people enrolled in mentorships, internships, practicums. These individuals are enrolled locally, some of them, but for the most part, they're enrolled in what could best be described as distance learning programs from Washington to California, from Maine to Florida, and all parts in between. The two programs, mentorship and internship, seem to fluctuate back and forth. Of the 115 students we have enrolled at the present time, 88 of them are enrolled in the mentorship program. That means that approximately, well, more than 80% of the students are enrolled in mentorship. Previously, we've had students enrolled, more students enrolled in internship. And as this changes back and forth, it really reflects the basic needs and the differences among students, and I'm going to address those issues today. When you get ready to go out to do your mentorship or your internship, then you're going to have to make some decisions, and the decisions as to whether you're going to do a mentorship or an internship are probably going to be the most important to get started right. How many students here are going to take mentorship, internship, or practicum? Raise your hands. Everybody? There's no one here doing thesis? Okay, good. Now, on the mentorship, internship, how many students here are going to take mentorship? Raise your hands. Okay, how many are going to take internships? Raise your hand. Well, you can see in the population here that the majority of the students are wanting to take internship as opposed to mentorship. And that just demonstrates the varying differences and between classes and the needs of the students. Okay, let's talk about the two programs and see what is the difference between the two. And let's go back and look at a little bit of history of this program. In the early 1980s, in fact it was 1981, we had a graduate program that was not accredited. We had about 12 students in the program, and we were looking at ways in which we could make sure that the students gained the knowledge that they needed to perform as professionals in their area. Almost everyone in the program that time was either in sports medicine or in sports management. Those were basically the two programs. And when we looked at it, we felt that an internship program like was being done in hospitals and medical programs was ideal, because what it would provide was experiences that the students couldn't get in the classroom, experiences that they could utilize in their resumes, and experiences that could help them get job opportunities, which is basically, even back in the early 80s, was one of the primary concerns of the students. But then we thought that, gee, there has to be some way to do it better than the way others are doing it. One of the things that I had come from the University of Massachusetts, where I had served as the coordinator of internships there, and one of the biggest complaints I received all the time from master's students coming back was the fact that they were utilized as gophers in their internships. That when we would send someone to the San Francisco Warriors at the time, the basketball team, and they would go into that experience, they would be paid, but basically the only thing they would do is get in the car, pick up the athletes from the airport, take the athletes to go buy something, take the athletes to go here, whatever, and they were basically used as gophers. And the experience was not the type of experience that lent itself to an educational process, other than it gave them contacts and a little bit of networking, but certainly wasn't fulfilling the educational end of it. After we took a look at it, we decided on a program that could enlarge that we called the mentorship program. And the idea was to find individuals in the field who were acknowledged leaders. We coined the phrase great ones in the field, like a Homer Rice or someone of that sort in athletic administration, and then get the student to work underneath that mentor in a concentrated program where the mentor could actually teach the student what that job was that he did. Okay? Well, that was a little bit of a departure from the internship experience. And to do that, we had to structure it a little bit differently, and so we did. The initial program, and this shows you how much things have changed over time, the initial program was a year-long program. So the mentorship was available really only to summer students, and started in the fall and ran all the way through to the summer period. Students were required to gain 720 contact hours minimally, but we encouraged them to get over 1,000 hours of contact. In addition to that, we required that students take 3 independent study courses while they were on location at site. And those courses were to supplement the competencies that we set out for their programming. So that a student would go into the field, sign up with someone like the head basketball, and I'll use this as an example because this is one of the stories that reflects the problems, the good things and the bad things associated with mentorships and internships. At Rice University, head basketball coach, and we took a coaching major and placed him with head basketball coach at Rice starting, well, actually in late August. During that phase, we had laid out competencies that coach was to receive. The head basketball coach at that time was a recognized, successful Division I basketball coach, and it looked like an ideal situation because the student, there were no NCAA or not as many NCAA regulations at the time, so the student was actually taken on as an assistant coach. There were recruiting responsibilities, there were on-floor coaching responsibilities, there were planning, organizing responsibilities. So he really got an opportunity to do everything that the head coach was doing. And Rice needed this extra help because they did not have the money to pay for all of the coaching staff that many of the others had, and this was an additional pair of hands they looked forward to. The student was a basketball player, had coached previously, so he was bringing some skills to the table, so to speak. Well, we laid out the process and we did a contract, a 3-way contract. A contract between the institutions, that's between Rice and the United States Sports Academy, between the student and the institution, the student and Rice, and between the student and the United States Sports Academy. So it was a 3-way contract. And basically in the contract it stipulated everything that we expected Rice University to provide, everything we expected the coach to provide to our student, everything we expected the student to provide to them, and everything we expected to provide to the student and to Rice University. The contract is fairly long, and when you deal with this, you should read this contract carefully because it does spell out certain things. Fortunately, we did have a clause in there on how to get out of your program. Well, I'll skip ahead a little bit. In this particular program, this student that we had there noticed during the time he was there that the coach at that time was cheating, that he was violating NCAA rules. Now, the student knew this because he was a former coach, and one of the things he had was responsibility to take NCAA regulations and make sure that the institution was abiding by them. He noticed that the coach was cheating. He went to the coach in thinking that the coach wanted to know that this was a violation, and went to the coach and told the coach that these were violations and that they needed to do something about it. Well, the coach got quite upset and told him it was none of his business, that wasn't what he was here for. He was here for these other things to do, and he should pay attention to his duties and none of the others. Well, now the student was placed on the horns of a dilemma. And the dilemma is this: does the student tell the coach, hey, I can't abide by this? In other words, knowing something's wrong, look the other way. Or does the student stand up and say, I can't, I'm just going to abide, I'm going to do whatever you tell me to do and get the internship out of the way and basically compromise his ideals? Well, it's an interesting educational experience because the student had to make that choice. Eventually, the student called back to the academy and said that he was having problems. He was reticent to address the problems because the issue was a fairly serious issue. He would, in fact, be accusing this coach of unethical practices, and as a result, that could lead to some problems for the student, some problems for the coach, and some problems for Rice University. Well, what happened was that we then got involved, which is part of the clause, and we called to that school and told the coach that we would like to remove the student from the internship experience, actually mentorship experience, remove him from the mentorship experience and, basically end the contract. Of course, the coach wanted to know why. So we then had to explain to the coach why we wanted to remove it. And we used all of the nice language that you can possibly use, that it's going to be a better learning experience if we get them someplace else, so on and so forth, so that we didn't place the student and the coach at odds over the issue of this NCAA violation. He basically agreed. We removed the student from that and then spent a month looking for another assignment. We finally got him into a junior college experience to complete his mentorship. Okay? Well, there's a lot of learning that can go on there. And I think from the student's perspective, that was probably one of the best learning experiences, although at the time the student didn't think so. That was probably one of the best learning experiences you could have, because you're faced with the reality of Division I intercollegiate athletics. And that is that there are problems. And how do you address those problems? Okay? Well, eventually the coach at Rice University was terminated for his practices, and so it did prove that the student was in fact correct, but we never got involved in that process, and we were not the prime movers in that process occurring. On the other hand, there are mentorships that are exciting from day one, no problems. Students go through without any individual occurrences such as occurred at Rice University, and have very good programs. The key to establishing your mentorship and your internship so that will be valuable to you is, of course, doing your homework before you go. And what that requires is the process of you deciding initially how, what your objectives are and how you're going to achieve those objectives. Okay? I have a favorite saying in any class experience, that if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And I think this is important as you begin to decide whether you want to be a mentor or an intern, or whether in fact this is even right for you, or then which of the two and what area you want to get into. To do that, you have to establish what your goals and objectives are as an individual student. What is it that I want to be? Now, I'm going to use a scenario here for you and step through it because it's a scenario that I'm familiar with, but you can apply the process to any of the areas, okay? And I'm going to use sports management as an example. If I were to come to school today and start out, my goal and objective would be to become an athletic director. That would be my goal and objective. In establishing that goal and objective, I would have to try to determine what is the realism of me becoming an athletic director, and at what level and at what kind of school. Okay? Well, in this particular case, my interests would be, going back to the way I was when I was younger, my interest would be to be a Division I athletic director. The realities of coming out of an undergraduate program and having coached for a couple of years and then becoming a Division I athletic director would be slim to none at all. Okay? So what I would have to do is then position myself to take opportunities or a career path that would lead to the objective of becoming an athletic director. Okay? So what would that career path include? Well, first of all, it would include an advanced degree, because one of the things in sports management, in intercollegiate athletics, advanced degrees are almost what you would refer to in the Latin as a sine qua non, without which there is nothing. If you don't have that advanced degree, you're not going to get the opportunity to interview for the position, so that opportunity is not going to exist. So an advanced degree would be number one. So I would look for a place to go for an advanced degree. My assumption is that you've all been through this thought process, and that's why you're here for your master's degree. Then the second thing is, how is that advanced degree going to help me attain that position? Okay? Well, in this particular case, the thing that is most important in intercollegiate athletics is a word called networking. networking. Although it is said that you need to have degrees, experience, knowledge, really what you need to have for placement, okay, is a network of individuals who know you, understand what your abilities are, and can help you get a position. Positions do not always go to the best qualified individual. We would like to think that is so, but in reality, it is often who you know, not what you know, that is the condition for access. So knowing that as a background, then my next step would be not only putting the master's degree together or that advanced degree together. In my case, it was a little bit different. I thought not in terms of a master's degree, but in terms of a doctorate. I took a little different approach because I felt that I did not have the network background where I came from, and as a result, I wanted another degree that was going to separate me from all the other applicants for Division I athletic directors positions, because the number of people in Division I higher intercollegiate athletics with a doctorate was very small at that time. This is 30 years ago, very small. But I'm taking it back now to master's degree. So now I look at my program and I say, what is going to provide me with this networking? How am I going to achieve the networking? Well, the key to achievement of networking is to get some place where an individual has a network and then you become a part of that network. That is to say, someone who is a recognized and established leader in that field. So if I were going to do this, I would do research to find out who were the established leaders in intercollegiate athletics at the Division I level. Roy Kramer would be one possibility. Used to be the athletic director at Vanderbilt University. He's now the commissioner of the SEC. Homer Rice is a past president of NACDA. So you're saying to me, well, how do I know these things? Well, do the research. Where do I find out about intercollegiate athletics? There are organizations. Every one of the areas that you're considering going into has at least one, if not multiple, organizations associated with it. And who are the leaders in those organizations? NACDA is the National National Association of Collegiate Directors of Athletics. That organization is prints a magazine, so I can get the magazine and I can read it. I can go to the front page and I can see who the past presidents are, the future presidents are going to be, and I can find out who the leadership is in that area. At that time, Homer Rice was a leader in this particular field, so I could select Homer Rice as the person that I would want to do an internship or mentorship. Now the question becomes, which would be better for me in my process of establishing network? Well, because networking is so important, the more time I have to prove myself in that role, the better opportunity I believe I have of getting a position from that position, or at least getting good recommendations from that position. So I would choose the mentorship. The mentorship has 540 hours, the internship has 360 hours. The mentorship has a research project that is designed to deal with a problem at that institution. Well, this is an ideal opportunity for me, because if I can go to Georgia Tech and address a problem at Georgia Tech and resolve it, get an A on the paper here, and give the paper to the athletic director at Georgia Tech in helping him do something that they don't do at the present time, I could be, in fact, creating a position for myself. Example. A few years ago, we had a student who was in sports management, wanted to be an athletic director, but basically was coming out of an electrical engineering background. He graduated from a small liberal arts college, Division III school, played athletics, wanted to get back into it, but really did not have any opportunity of getting into that athletic director's mold because he had no network, no background for it, etc. Came into the program, and in the mentorship, we arranged for him to go to a Division I school that shall go unmentioned for obvious reasons, a Division I school that did not have an NCAA compliance program. This is only 4 years ago. Did not have an NCAA compliance program. You know what that means? That means that they didn't have anybody who was overseeing what was supposed to be done at that institution from an NCAA regulation standpoint. If you don't understand that, go to the library, pull out the NCAA manual, take a look at it. You won't be able to read more than the purpose before you'll be bored with it, and then understand all of those 300 pages that follow are what you have to do to make sure your institution is in compliance with those regulations, or you can have a problem. They didn't have one. So in an independent study then, we created a compliance officer. What I did was wrote a course in independent study for the student so that he and I could get together and he could go through that entire manual and develop a compliance system. So when he went to take his mentorship, he took that compliance system with him. The problem was obvious. No compliance system. Let's develop a compliance system. He went there, he developed a compliance system, got the network from them, created a position for himself, and got placement. Okay? Now that's what planning can do for you as you get ready to do this. Going back to the original idea now, I'm looking at a career path. I'm in mentorship experience because that is going to help me with my career path. As an aside, I could be in sports medicine. An internship could serve me better because what I might need there is a short clinical experience as opposed to the in-depth experience of the mentorship and the problem solving of a research project. Okay? But again, it's targeted towards what? My end goal. My end goal and objective. Now you need to sit down and think this through. Where do I want to be in 5 years? What is it I want to be? Now, I'm 53 years old, 54, just turned 54. I'm 54 years old. I have no idea now what I want to do with the rest of my life. Okay? So that each period of time I'm reevaluating what I'm doing. What's the next step? Where do I want to be 5 years from now? And that's an ongoing evaluative process, okay? It's a process, not an end result. But you need to be into that process now in thinking, this is what I want to be, and then how does my education help me achieve that, and then which of these two schemes, mentorship or internship, is going to end up with me getting to where I want to get to. And it does require that you do a little research and background work to be able to figure that out. If you go ahead and open your MIP handbooks, and if you don't have one, if you can shuffle over next to somebody that does, and you can open inside to the mission statement, I want to point something out here that's really important to you. Okay? In this program, the United States Sports Academy has a mission statement. That mission statement is written in the catalog that you receive. It's written in this mentorship, internship handbook. It's published in lots of different places. The purpose, the mission of the institution is basically to serve as a sport resource. Okay, that is the idea of the mission of the institution. So what we have to do is make sure that our educational programs fit our mission. We think that the mentorship, internship, practicum program fits it very well because what it does is provide us with the opportunity of allowing our students to go out and find the best program that they can find that will allow them to accommodate their competencies to meet their individual goals, okay, and allow us to evaluate it in a fair way so when it's all said and done, the experiential learning you will receive will be superior to what you could have received in a classroom setting over the equivalent period of time. Okay? All right, if you look inside, basically there are terms, and the terms are always confusing because people say, They use terms interchangeably, and they're really not. So please, because if you come and talk to someone and you say, well, I want to have a mentor, but you're really considering internship, then it'll get confusing. What are the terms? First of all, in the mentorship, you have a mentor, and that is the individual under whom you will work at an off-campus site, okay? You are the mentee, the person working under the mentor. You have an advisor, which is a faculty member on this campus that you work with. So those are the three things in the mentorship, the three key people in the mentorship. When you move to the internship, you have a supervisor. Again, that's the individual off campus that you will work under. You are the intern, and you have an advisor here at the institution. Okay? So from a definition standpoint, those are the key definitions that stand out. Now, if you want to do a mentorship or an internship, what's the first step? What is the first thing that you do? Now, I know that you're going to tell me the first thing is planning, because you just listened, and that's good. But let's jump back from the planning and get to the nitty-gritty of it. What's the first thing you're going to do in a mentorship or an internship experience? And it's going to be done on campus, and it probably should be done in your first quarter. What's that? No, you've got an advisor already. All right? Now, you should go to that advisor and talk to that advisor about what? Your goals, your objectives, what it is you want to do, so that that person can lend you some expertise in helping you to plan your process. What are the management functions? Where are the sports management people here? What are the management functions? What are the management functions? What are they? Planning. Planning. Good. There you go. Planning. Okay? Organizing. Okay? Didn't they give you that little acronym in class yet? POSDIC or whatever the different acronyms are? Okay? Well, planning is the first step. So you want to get with your advisor and you want to plan this and let the advisor give you his or her expertise to get you started. Okay? That's number one. What's the second step? The second step is now finding out where you want to go. Okay? So you now know that you've decided you want to go intercollegiate athletics and you want to go to a Division I level, so you're going to look for a Division I school. How do you do that? You basically research the opportunities. NCAA is very easy. There's an NCAA guide in there. Okay? There are approximately 1,500 institutions in higher education at the NCAA, 1, 2, and 3 levels. They're all listed. If you want to go big time, NCAA Division I football and basketball, then you're going to look at about 96 institutions. Most of them are going to be state-run institutions. But when you go to that NCAA guide or blue book, in that blue book you will see a listing of the athletic director, the assistant athletic director, SID, all the coaches, telephone numbers, addresses, and you'll have everything you need. All right? So once you've done your research, then you want to begin to contact potential mentors or supervisors, depending on which of the two you're going into. How do you do that? What's the most effective way to contact those people? Okay, one of the things is, the standard thing is to say, you write a letter into them, and then you follow it up with a call, right? Okay, that is what's called conventional wisdom. This is what. But most of the letters that go in are cold letters, and those cold letters, unless you know somebody, are going to end up in the trash can, and you probably won't get a response. A much better approach, since you have the telephone number, is to call. And when you call, find out, do you do internships or practical types of programs? That's the first question. And you should have a series of questions written. And then you should find out who's in charge of the selection of that. And then you should tell them that you're interested in it and you would like to follow this conversation with what? A letter and a resume. And in the letter, you should outline what you want to do, then the resume, and probably at that time you would include the sheet from this book that says what a mentor or intern supervisor has to do. There's letters in here, correct?
Right, I have a packet too.
Okay, Jeannie has a packet. That's even better. So she can just hand you the packet, you can use the packet. But you need to find people who are willing to serve in those roles. Now, some people throw up their hands and say, well, I don't know anybody. Okay? So you got to get one for me. Well, if you come to me and say, yeah, I can guarantee I can get anybody a position, okay, in intercollegiate athletics. Yeah, I can guarantee that. How many people here? 30? I could get 30 of you, all 30 of you positions, okay, as interns. But it probably won't be the position you want. It'll be the ones that I know that meet the needs in the network that I have. And that may not meet your needs and may not be what you want. So you need to have the latitude to go out there. And then if you get stuck, you need to come back to your advisor and say, hey, I'm stuck. I need some help. And then let him try to work through. Okay, once you get out there, you may find out that you get 5 or 6 opportunities. 5 or 6 people send back to you and say, we would be interested in having you as an intern, okay? We'd like to have you visit. Now you have to be prepared to visit because this process is becoming more and more selective as time goes by. And there may be 8 or 9 people applying for this position and they want to meet the person because paper tells you one thing, interview tells you another. People lie in their paper. Okay? People say things that are not necessarily true in their paper. There are many, many examples of this. Probably the most famous in the state of Alabama is they hired an executive director for the junior colleges in the state based on his paper. In his paper he said he had a doctorate. It turned out after he got the job and he was here that he did not have a doctorate. Well, that's very poor hiring procedures, but it shows that people do lie in their paper even at higher levels. So paper doesn't tell everything. It gives you a good overview. They probably want to talk to you so they can see, should this person be here or not. For instance, if you want to go to the Cooper Aerobics Center, if you're in fitness management, I believe they require, okay, an interview. So you have to be prepared for that. All right? So now you get 5 or 6. Which one do you choose? Which one do you go to? Which one do you become involved in? What's the answer? It's a simple one. Huh? No? That isn't the answer.
Which one meets your needs?
Yeah. Which one meets your needs? Period. Which one meets your needs? That's it. Okay? And the only way you're going to do that is you're going to talk to the people and find out what they're going to allow you to do and what they don't. You know, you can say, well, I'm going to go to Georgia Tech, and Homer Rice can set it up to give you an assistant athletic director who doesn't do any of the stuff that you want done. And as a result, that's not going to necessarily meet your needs. Now, it may give you good networking, and it may get you at the top dog, okay, in the pile of athletic directors for a while, but it's not going to perhaps meet your needs. I want to do something in marketing. I want to understand intercollegiate marketing. I'm not going to understand intercollegiate marketing taking a marketing course with Applin or May, because that's an academic course that doesn't necessarily get to all the details and the nitty-gritty of intercollegiate marketing. But if I'm with Homer Rice and I can get that with that assistant athletic director in charge of marketing and get that experience for 3 or 4 months, I'm going to learn how it is done, because they're running a Division I intercollegiate program that is ranked in the top 10 for all sports, men and women, in NCAA. And these are the things that you want to look for. Okay, once you have found your spot that's going to meet your needs, then you get into the boring detail of getting it right. And this is where we have a lot of problems. The boring details are basically outlined in this book, okay? And there are things that you must do. To make it as easy for you as we can, we have a checklist. And if you're a mentor, it says mentor intern checklist, right? And all that you have to do is read through that list and make sure you get everything done on that list. It is that simple. But no sooner have I said that than I got to tell you that if I drew a circle around 5 out of the 10 people in this room, 5 out of every 10, those 5 would indicate people who will not do that and will have a problem. And the problem will come because they haven't done something in the checklist above. Then they'll be saying, well, I want to start my internship tomorrow. I got to have this contract. And Jeannie will be saying what? What do you say? Well, she lays it off on me. She said, Dr. Applin won't let you do this because you haven't done this. Okay? So that's what basically you've got to do. You've got to follow that checklist and make sure you have everything done. And there's a lot of steps in there. It's a nitty-gritty to it. Now, once all of that is done, I want to point out 2 things that are very important. Sports management people, what's the liability? Where are the sports management people? Raise your hand. Where is the liability in a mentorship internship?
I'm not sure.
Okay, she's not sure. Can anyone help her? Is there any liability, risk, exposure? Now see, when you're in sports management, one of the things you're going to have to really think about is what? Controlling your risk. You can lose a lot of money there if you don't control risk. Okay? Well, what is the risk in an internship? It's a student going on to a campus being assigned tasks, and she can mess up. And when she messes up, what happens? Who's responsible? The institution has to assume some of the responsibility. We have to assume some of the responsibility. And goodness gracious, she has to assume some of the responsibility, or you all have to assume it. Okay? Now, to cover that, what do you normally get? Insurance. We have insurance for you. You are covered automatically. But you are only covered if you do what? Jeannie?
You have to have your, don't you have to have your certificate in, or?
You have to be registered for the cost to be covered. If you're not registered, you're not covered. And if you're not covered, we're not starting you, and we are doing what? Saying we have no responsibility. So then you're out there on your own with that institution, and you don't want to be there. Because there's a lot of insurance coverage here. And you say, well, what risk could you possibly have in sports management? Oh, I'd say close to $6 million worth of risk, easily. Okay? And I'm sure you wouldn't want to be working off. How many people think they're going to make $6 million in their lifetime? Raise your hand. Okay, good. There aren't going to be too many of you. And so if you had to work off and pay off the $6 million liability, you'd be working a long time doing it. Okay, so you have to make sure you're registered for the course to get into it, so you get the liability, and then everything is taken care of. Now, you're at your site. Let's go through the things that you have to do at your site so you understand beforehand. First of all, because this is distance learning, where you're out there and we're here, we have to have some way of doing a management function called control. We have to have some way of having control over this program. Now, the way we do that is through this little old booklet that you have there. If anyone has them, I see someone back there has one, that has forms in it. Now, this is what everybody hates, right? I mean, who likes to fill out forms? Anybody here like to fill out forms? Everybody hates to fill out forms. I mean, it's just a fact of life. When you're growing up, you say, why do you have to do this? Well, basically, you need to do it from the standpoint of control. Because all of these things are integrated. I'll just use this as an example. When accredited in 1983, okay? And when we were reaccredited in 1988, and when we went through our 5th year of a 10-year cycle in 1993, they always looked at the mentorship program. And when they looked at it, they wanted to know where the student was, who the mentor was, how much time they spent, what were the competencies, etc., etc., etc. Why? Because they were evaluating that program to see that it was equivalent to what was going on campus. That is an issue. And for us to be accredited, we have to do that. How do we do that? We utilize these documents to support that the learning activity took place. Okay? That's why we do it. Now, it's boring to you to fill them in, but unless they're filled in right, we can't justify that. And if we can't justify it, then it can't be accredited. If it can't be accredited, we cannot continue using the program. So that's how important it is. These, I'm colorblind. What color are these? Pale yellow. Good. That's what I was going to say. They were brown. Okay, pale yellow. These pale yellow are the daily logs. What you have to do in the daily log is every day, right up at the top, it says date, plan of the day. You notice how it talks about planning? Now, I know that there are some of you here that are time management experts. Okay? But have you ever heard of a guy by the name of Covey? Okay? Have you ever heard of a book called First Things First? Well, he says never to plan day by day. He said that is time management of the 3rd level, okay, which is a level that we've passed already, according to him. Now, what he says is you should plan for the week. But in essence, this plan of the day fits into what you want to accomplish for the entire week. And then it says, what were the results? Interesting. An unexamined life, said somebody, is not worth living. What this is asking you to do is say, this is what we expected to do this week, this is what we actually did, and what were the factors that contributed to us either reaching it or not reaching it. This is evaluation. This is an educational experience. You learn more by yourself than you'll ever learn from anybody else. And so this self-evaluation on a day-to-day basis can be a tremendous learning activity. So you do the log every day and you keep it. You keep the log. Each week there are blue sheets. At the end of the week, you to summarize your week. Summarize, sign it, have your supervisor sign it, and return it to your advisor here. Again, you're summarizing the learning experiences you had during the week. So every week you're out there, and there's plenty in here, you'll be sending in these blue sheets. They'll be signed by whom? Either your, no, not your, you send them to your advisor. They'll be signed either by your mentor or your supervisor, okay? On here, you should note the number of hours. Now, someone said to me, you know, Dr. Applin, I have 540 hours, and I want to drop out of the mentorship. I've done my 540 hours. My mentorship is over. Okay, this is what I call focusing on product over process. Okay, and I think one of the things in an achievement-oriented society that really does get short shrift is process. We're so often interested in accumulating things, wins, whatever it happens to be, that we focused on the end result all the time and miss the importance of the process. What is important is education is a process. It is a state of becoming. It is not a state of being. There's a difference. And you're becoming in this thing. So as you go through here, you're explaining what's happening. Log the hours in here so we know you've accumulated the right number of hours, but show how you're becoming on these blue sheets. Okay. Then we get to the pink sheet. I say, God, what do you got all these sheets for? Huh? I mean, this is ridiculous. Well, it isn't. And if you got a better way to do it, tell me, because if you got a way to shorten paperwork, we're all for it. The pink sheets are sheets that are done at the end of the month. Who fills out the pink sheet? The student fills it out. So you've got your daily, weekly, and monthly sheets. On the monthly sheet, you are summarizing. Now, what should you summarize to? The goals and objectives. So you should go back to your contract, which has in it the competencies you're expected to achieve on assignment out there, and you should be on a monthly basis relating these to your competencies. I just got these monthly sheets from, I got them from a student. And this is stuff like, well, I had a good time, I went over here, I did, you know, they weren't even good descriptors. Okay? So what did I do? Wrote a scorching letter back to the student saying, this is ridiculous. Read your contract, get your competencies, and redo this. This is unacceptable. This is not graduate level work. Okay? So if you're unlucky enough to get me as your advisor, then I'm going to hold you to all of these things. And supposedly, so is everyone else. Okay? So you do that. Now we get to the good stuff. The green sheets. Who does the green sheets?
The mentor and internship.
Right. Either the supervisor or the mentor does the green sheet. The green sheet is his or her perspective of you. It's a monthly evaluation. Now let me tell you something. We subscribe to an open evaluation system. Where's my personnel management people? Who's had personnel management? Nobody. Don't want to say. Who knows anything about personnel? What's the difference between what's the open system, Pam?
Where I can look at it.
Yes, right. The open system is he or she must review it with you. Because why? This is part of the evaluation. You could be over here on the pink sheet saying, I'm accomplishing everything. I'm doing great. I've learned this, 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 and this. And he or she over here could be saying, this is the dumbest sucker I ever worked with. Okay? Now there's a gap between those two positions. All right? And you have to be able to reconcile that. All right? And then the famous sheet, the white sheet. Of course, all of you that focus on product, this will be the most important sheet. And you will have forgotten everything else I say when you leave here. Because this is the sheet that's filled out at the end of the number of hours you have registered for. Let's say you register for 6 hours of mentorship in the fall, or let's say in the summer of this year coming up. You go out on mentorship, you sign up for 6 hours. At the end of the summer, your mentor is going to send in this white sheet. And on this white sheet, he or she is going to fill it out and give you a grade in essence, because if you go to the second part back here, you will see this little grid that they fill in. Your grade will be based upon a review of your weekly, monthly sheets that you send in, the monthly sheets that he or she sends in, and the final evaluation. And the grade will be done by your advisor here on campus. Now, during the time you're out there, your advisor is expected to make at least one call per quarter, or per 6 hours in essence. One call per 6 hours to you, or one call to your, and one call to your mentor or supervisor. Now, the way I do it is I write a letter to him and say, you're expected to call me. These are the times I'll be in the office. Give me a call. So the person calls in. In fact, I got a call back to a person in California right now, okay, who's a mentor. I've got his white sheet. I've reviewed everything. I want to talk to him about this experience so I can get a feel for the competencies that this student is supposed to have achieved and didn't in this particular case. But there were factors, mitigating factors for why this didn't occur. And I want to make sure it's accurate. Okay? So that's the white sheet. In addition to that, when you are done the 540 or the 180 hours, okay, 540 being the contact hours you must complete in the mentorship, the 360, the number you must complete in the internship, then you must do an exit interview. The exit interview is with your advisor on campus. You don't have to be here. You can merely set up a time to talk to that person, make the call, and you can talk over the phone. In the exit interview, the advisor is verifying that what you have written and received grades for is what you actually did. It can take a half hour to an hour's period of time, depending on whether it's a mentorship or an internship and the complexities of the competencies that you had. Okay? And that's part of the system as well. Once you have done that, you will have completed your mentorship practical hours or field experience. And then if you're in a mentorship, you must go on to sign up for an additional 6 hours in a research project. The research project is designed to resolve an issue or a problem in the organization that you're working with. So when do you start to identify that problem? Well, you don't wait till you finish the 540 hours. As soon as you get in there, you start looking for issues and problems. In fact, you probably talk to your mentor and say, what are some of the problems here? And how can I help you with the problem? Because as I said before, if you do something like that, you can either create a position for yourself, or you can definitely help yourself network where that individual will work to help get you a job. All right? So he or she may say, well, I don't have any, I'll go back to intercollegiate, I don't have any money for the minor sports. Well, right away, that tells you something, okay? That gives you a hone on where that person's coming from, directly out of the dark ages. But I don't have any money for the minor sports. So then what you're looking for is to develop a business plan, all right, to resolve what issue? Finances for the other non-revenue or low-revenue producing sports. All right? And then you just have to break that out into its sub-problems, and then you've got a paper, a project you can really sink your teeth into, and then when you get done, you're going to get an A on it here because it's going to be well thought out and well written, and then you're going to give that to that person out there, and they're going to utilize it to make their program more effective. You're going to feel good because you have contributed something to a program and been very positive about it. Okay? That's the mentorship, internship, practicum experience. I think it is one of the really great opportunities that you would have as students. When I went to school, they didn't have such thing. They believed that that was all garbage back then. Okay? But you couldn't learn anything on the outside. The only place you could learn is when you walked through those walls and into that classroom and listened to that boring lecture for an hour and a half. That was the only way you could ever learn. Well, that's changed now, fortunately. And this type of experience can really be positive for you in a variety of ways, and I'll repeat those as an ending. First of all, networking for job opportunities. Second of all, making a positive contribution. Third, building a resume. It's a resume builder. Fourth, it's going to give you competencies that you could never get inside the classroom. And fifth, it's going to give you an opportunity to see what the real world is like. Okay? And then, after it's all over, you say, hey, I don't want to do this. No, that's a joke. You would say, yeah, this is what I want to do. Okay, are there any questions? A comment, fine. Any comments?
While you're planning and doing all of your thinking about what you want to do, I think one of the keys that not a lot of students go into is to talk with alumni who have been through this process.
Good.
It maybe, like say with our NCAA compliance, so you could talk to a student who is, one, doing NCAA compliance right now, did an internship, mentorship, or whatever in NCAA compliance. What were the problems they faced? What were the issues that they thought they were going to get to do in their contract and everything like that didn't actually happen? Or something they wish they had put in their contract but didn't know about it until after the thing was already through. The alumni are very gushing when you do this. Two things. It helps your experience be better. You learn from someone else's mistakes. Plus, you add that alumni to your personal network. So And then a personal comment, when I did an internship, what I did with my internship is I thought I was too poor to go to, from Oklahoma, I thought I was too poor to say go to Philadelphia and do an internship. I thought I had to go back to Oklahoma and live at home or live with family or whatever like that. What happened was is I went back and did an internship with someone I already knew. I did not add anyone through my internship to my network. I already knew that person. I already knew everyone he knew in Oklahoma. It since has been very beneficial to me. So don't look, I mean, especially as resident students, don't look at the opportunity that's in California if you're from Florida as unachievable. Student loans are there, everything like that. While you're a student, it's a whole lot easier to bite off that financial burden than it is to regret it 7 or 8 years down the road that you didn't actually take that step and go someplace else and actually add to your knowledge and add to your network and things like that that you now wish you could do.
Some excellent points. Alumni can become part of your network and should, because almost all alumni will talk to you. They've been through what you've been through. There are 2,000 of them. They're international and national. And if you have international aspirations, that is a possibility, and you should think to what your needs are. Don't think to what you can get. And I think that's basically what Pam is saying. So alumni become a great network, and Pam is the director of alumni, so she can help you in that regard. You should make an appointment to see her and deal with those 2,000. The second point that I heard Pam saying is don't sell yourself into a program that is a comfort zone. In other words, I'm from Providence, Rhode Island, so I want to go back to Providence College because I know, or I want to go back to the Rhode Island Junior College because I know Vinnie Cullen, who was my junior high school basketball coach, and he's now the athletic director there. I want to go back there because I know he'll take me and I know it will be comfortable, so on and so forth. Those are not good reasons. Now, if I went back there because I wanted to network in the junior college circuit in New England, because he was a past president of NACDA, because there were opportunities there for me to get a job, those would be good reasons. But don't go for comfort purposes because you're selling yourself short and you're not getting all of the opportunity that you could have. So think tall, think long range. Those are good, excellent points. The other thing is, you know, how do you negotiate for payment? Some internships and mentorship experiences will pay. I know that at the University of Massachusetts, when I did those programs, about 50% were paying programs. And how was that done? Basically, these students, I was a doctoral student, they were master's students, they did not want to negotiate. I felt, hey, this is going to be a great experience for me to negotiate with these people over the phone, so I'm going to do it. I've got nothing to lose because they're not going to get anything unless I get them something, so here's a chance to talk my way into some money. And I know that I would talk to those people and negotiate with them. They would all start with the position there was no money. But eventually, we were able to work, particularly the professional teams, into money situations because I said, look, student, you're getting a student who is basically a master's degree individual. And you are getting a student who can provide expertise for your program, who can add to and extend to what you presently do. You wouldn't hire someone to do that and pay them nothing. I'm not asking you to hire these people and pay them. I'm asking you to pay them so that they can survive and do the job for you and they're not worried about money all the time. And that seemed to be a pretty good gig in getting them to think in terms of money because many of them came through. I remember negotiating with Carl Scheer, who was at the time was with the Denver Nuggets and was the general manager. And I don't know where he is now, but he's a real progressive guy. And we had a guy now who's the vice president for student affairs at Norwich University in Vermont. And Dave, wanted to go out there and do this thing with Carl, and he just didn't have the money. And from Massachusetts to Denver, Colorado is a long ways. So we talked about it and eventually got him a $600 a month stipend which we thought was a lot of money until they get out there and found out what the cost of living was and housing and everything. It didn't seem like much, and basically it was difficult, but we did it. We were able to defray. In addition to that, Pam has pointed out that there are loans and other things available. This is an investment. This is an investment. I know last quarter we did a convocation with students. We talked about entrepreneurship. I tried to be an entrepreneur for 2 years. I lost boodles of money. And in that, what I learned, however, cost me over $100,000. What I learned, however, from that experience, that $100,000 experience, was more that if I took all of my education and added it together, it was more. And I'm sure I paid at least $100,000 for my education from when I started through my doctorate. Okay? So it's a good experience in this case, would be worth the loans and the investment to get going. Okay, any other points, questions, comments, suggestions, deletions, whatever? Yes?
What if say you're doing one internship and down the road another one came up and you had a chance
Right.
for another one?
Sure. There's, again, it's like the hours. Supposing I have 360 hours, and you get out there and you say, gosh, you know, I could stay for a whole year here. If I was your advisor, I'd say do it. If you can afford to do it and it's meeting your needs, do it. Because all you're doing is getting those experiences and selling yourself more readily to that person. If you're doing a dual, then you're going to do 2 internships. But if you're just in one major, yeah, you can take on another internship, but it can't supplant the other hours that you've got to do. In other words, you can't substitute it for course hours. So what it amounts to, you could either take it on as non-credit and just do it, okay? Or you could take it on as maybe individualized study, okay? But it couldn't supplant the other hours. But it could be well worth doing. Could be well worth doing. Any other?
I think going along with that, if you're at an internship site and say a competitor down the road or whatever says, hey, I've got an internship for you too, a little different twist or whatever, and you still have hours left, and go back to school loans, you can, you know, do distance learning classes, still get the school loans, still have income to live on, and do a non-credit internship that increases your network, increases your marketability, increases your experiential learning, that makes you more marketable. So.
Right. Okay. Last point, and I forgot to mention this. Jeannie we do have a bank of sites that we've had students at, and right now that bank of sites is up to about 950. So there's another place to go that you can get a look at. In addition to that, on that board as you come in to the academic area, just before you turn into the laboratories or you go to classroom number 1, we post internship sites on there all the time, and there's a lot of different sites on there. For instance, I want to say the lookouts. So who are the Chattanooga lookouts? There's got to be 3 Academy graduates that work for the Chattanooga lookouts. Kathy Erickson, yeah. So, and they come back and they look back here for interns to come into their program, and that's part of that networking because we initiated that experience for them. Okay, are there any other questions? Yes.
Would you suggest taking a part-time job if your mentorship or internship has told you up front that they absolutely cannot pay you anything?
I would, if that met your needs and it was what you wanted to do, okay, and it was going to help you get to where you wanted to be, and there was none other that could do that, then my answer to that question would be yes. But I would make certain that they understood I would have to take a part-time job to be able to do that.
Okay.
So that there would never be the conflict existing between them saying, well, where are you going, and their understanding that you have to work to make money. Okay. It's been a long time. I appreciate your attention. And again, if you have specific questions, see your advisor. If that fails, then you can always knock on my door and see me. Sure.